Game 7 of the World Championship match. Ian Nepomniachtchi with white, Ding Liren with the black pieces. The match is tied 3-3. We've had an incredible 4 decisive games so far. And well, let's dive into the action because today was an exciting game yet again. So e4, which was to be expected by Nepo. He put Ding under pressure in game 1. He beat him in game 5 with e4. So now he continues with e4, which is his main move. And first surprise on move 1, Ding goes for his childhood favorite, the French defense. Seems like many of the top players, they have, had the French defense at some point in their repertoire, even though it's not very popular at the highest level. You always see it, from time to time. And Nepo even used it in the first time he won the candidates. So French defense, I like to see it. My favorite opening, d4, d5. And being surprised, Nepo goes for kind of a safe choice here, knight d2, the tower rush. If you want to put more pressure on the French, I think most people are going knight c3 here. But okay, knight d2, c5, sort of the modern way to play here. I'm of the belief. Now I agree with what Nigel Short said in his book. I'm starting to dislike this variation, and I think c5 is the way to go for black here. Knight g2, f3, and c takes d4, and knight takes d4. Main line here is more or less to take on d5, queen takes d5. And we have a lot of theory here, and I guess Nepo wanted to avoid that, having been surprised in this game. So he takes with a knight on d4, which is slightly less common, but solid move. Knight f6 by Ding. Now he takes on d5, and now we take with a knight. Because there's no pawn to protect on d4, so it makes less sense to expose the queen. Knight 2 to f3, bishop e7. They're developing their pieces, and now knight c6. And black actually doesn't mind getting this isolated pawn. It can be a weakness, but only in an endgame if the game progresses and white can attack it. For now, white can't attack it, and actually this gives this bishop some scope in many lines. And this had been played before, and the first new move of the game was in this position. There was one game where Yuri Krupa with white played knight e5. His opponent, Yuri Tokoyan, who for many, many years was the tried, true and trusted second of Garry Kasparov. He was always there by his side, and he played this with black, so must be solid. Bishop d3, the first new move of the game. By Nepo, he started to target the king side, feeling that, okay, there are not a lot of pieces on the king side. Queen c7, queen e4, threatening mate. This is a World Championship match. Black sees it, but he didn't choose the best move here. He should just play g6. And we don't have to worry about stuff like this when black is actually fine. White is a long way from creating something meaningful, and we're going to win a tempo here by threatening to expose the queen. So the game hangs in the balance here. g6 was the move. Knight f6 is slightly inaccurate because now the queen gets to swing over here to the king side and sort of add to the pressure here. c5, we open up for this bishop. Bishop to f4, hitting the queen. And this allows us to centralize here. Knight to e5. Now this pawn is poisoned, of course. I think we can simply play a move like this and win the bishop on b7. So rook a to d8. And now rook a to e1. It looked tempting to play knight g4. But then, because of the mate threat, I mean, if you're allowed to take here, or you take on g4, there's this mate threat. So I guess black would go for the exchange sacrifice here, rook takes d3. And this seems to be fine for black. His light squared bishop is unopposed, very strong. And black, has some very active pieces in the forthcoming battle and full compensation. So Ding would not have been afraid to take on d3, and that was the idea, I guess, with rook d8 as well. So rook a to e1 looks tempting. You want to prepare maybe for a rook swing, go on the offensive. g6, defending. Bishop g5. Now I have to do something against this. And Ding plays rook to d4. Hits the queen. So now we relieve the pressure here. Now the queen comes to c7. b3. Knight h5. And now f4. Computer doesn't like this. And the momentum is starting to swing in black's favor here, actually. Bishop d6, he could have maybe taken on g5 and played knight f4. And looks like black has the upper hand there. After bishop d6, c3. But here, Ding had a very nice idea in mind. He took on f4. And the computer really likes this. Brilliant move. But it's more or less because, well, your rook is attacked. You don't really have a good square for it. You have to sack the exchange here. And that's what he did. Took an f4. Takes on f4. Well, it's basically only move. Don't know if it's a brilliant move. Takes, bishop takes e5. So black has one pawn as compensation for the exchange, but a lovely pair of bishops, and especially this dark straight bishop is an absolute monster. It hits the rook, it puts pressure on this pawn and on this pawn. White played rook h4. It looks scary, but note that now that white doesn't have a dark squared bishop, the threat of taking on h7 is actually not something you have to worry about. You're not getting mated. Okay, you lose a pawn, but you're not getting mated, because this very strong bishop will cover the square. So okay, we maybe worry about losing a pawn, but we're not getting mated. So black plays rook d8. Now if you take on h7, I simply take on d3, and I win material because I take a rook next. Bishop e4, and Ding took on e4. Computer ponders here if it should be keeping the bishop, but, well, to my human mind, which is, well, not at this level, but it seems kind of wrong to go here or here because the bishop doesn't have scope. So this looks like a normal human move to me, to take on e4. Rook d5, the bishop is under attack. Rook h4, note that anytime you move this pawn, the bishop becomes a monster on d4. And then we follow up with e5, f5, and black is clearly for choice. So rook h4, and again, this pressure is insignificant. So we actually can play queen d6, which Ding did. And he's taken over the only open file here. His pieces are becoming quite good. Meanwhile, white is struggling here, and after h5, where's this rook going? He played g3 to free the rook, but now bishop f6, and rook c4. And this rook doesn't have a lot of squares. It's attacking c5, but where is it going next? And around here, I mean, black is doing fine. He's better, but it looks like Ding started to misevaluate the position here, and he spent a lot of time. He had 9 minutes left. This is move 31. Plenty of moves left, but plenty of time also, 9 minutes. But here he starts to spend a lot of time, and he said at the press conference he felt, you know, he misevaluated the position. He thought he was the one under pressure, but he's the one dictating play here. He played h4, which, I mean, isn't terrible, but not necessary. And after g takes, he played rook d2. And here he absolutely started to panic. He thought for 4 minutes for h4. Now he had 5 minutes left, almost 6 minutes, and he thought until he had less than a minute left. Less than a minute, and this is move 32. So he has to make a lot of moves, 8 moves to reach the time control in under a minute. So he basically has to blitz out every move. And this opens the door to mistakes. And it just looks like he froze at this moment. And this misevaluation of the position is uncharacteristic for Ding. A move such as bishop e5, you just hit the pawn. And it's still black who's dictating the play. I mean, okay, the rook isn't going anywhere. I mean, what's white's plan? What are you worried about? If you're worried about this bishop, you control the only open file. So maybe you're worried about the bishop, it's still under attack, you can't move here. So, I mean, you can put the bishop here, and then e5. Then you have the open file, you can maybe start pushing the f-pawn. The rooks aren't active for white, black is the one dictating play. And he shouldn't be able to lose here. That's what Giri said. I even had a phone call with the top Icelandic grandmaster of all time, Friðrik Ólafsson, about an unrelated matter, and he actually asked about the game, what happened in the game. I said, Ding lost. He was, what? I thought he couldn't lose. I said, yeah, that's what they said. So top grandmasters there, you know, they thought Ding couldn't lose this position, but he just had a meltdown. That's the only explanation. After rook d2, rook e2, and okay, if you give a check, king g2, the game still goes on. So rook d1 is even a better move here, but he makes another bad move, rook d3, and now we just take the pawn for no compensation. You have one check, but then nothing. Rook f2, there are no checks, and now this rook is becoming active, and actually after king g7, rook c to f4. The threats on the f file are unstoppable. Ding took on c3, but resigned almost immediately, and Nepo again takes the lead. We're at the halfway point. One game advantage for Nepo, but the game goes on. Ding has looked under pressure before. He has equalized twice. Can he do it yet again? Game 8 will be extremely important. It's on Thursday. There's a rest day tomorrow. And Nepo has white again. Now they kind of turn it around. We had 7 games. Now we have another 7 games. But now Nepo is the one starting with white, and Ding has the black pieces. So if Ding can survive game 8, I think we are still in for a good match. Well, it is good, probably a good match anyway. You know, it's 7 games, 5 decisive. So we're gonna stay tuned. See you.